But looks like we're going to get right into this duel here, so let's see who ends up going first.
1, 2, 3, 4.
I also think, as an extension of last week when we saw the popularity of Effect Valiant Infinite Impermanence, the Fire King cards generally line up pretty well when you have copies of Kyrian in your deck that can sort of circumvent those targeting negation effects. Same is true with Ghost Mortar, which we saw with a more degree of popularity here this weekend. But we see Chancellor opening one of the more ideal cards, which is a copy of 1-for-1, as long as it's not met with, and unfortunately it was, an Ash Blossom.
Commentator's curse. The 1-for-1, still a great card, obviously, just not going to happen this time. Looks like we're going to our next play, though.
This is useful. We haven't seen this a lot, but Matthew immediately informs his teammates that he's playing against Rescue Ace. Now, it's no guarantee that the other players, and in this case it's actually incorrect, but it's no guarantee that the other players would be playing Rescue Ace. But if some of his teammates were going first, the knowledge that they might potentially be playing against Rescue Ace is quite valuable.
No, it certainly is. We have seen some of these uniform teams where they all show up with the same strategy. They just agree this is the best deck, but there is definitely some variety across the board amongst these two teams. Speaking of variety, we're going to go ahead and see Rescue Ace Hydrant take the field and grab Airlifter, which is going to go ahead and grab a new spell card. It's going to be Alert.
Looks like Chancellor has made sure that his deck has Collector's Rares and the new Quarter Century Rares. It's an absolutely beautiful array of cards thus far. And it looks like he searched out a copy of Turbulence.
Looks like we're going to link off these two Rescue Ace monsters of the graveyard, which means Turbulence is already online.
Yes.
It's going to be the classic SP Turbulence opening thus far.
Not wasting any cards there, just going straight into the SP level. That makes sense. There's not really a reason to try to banish anything.
Leaving the Ash Blossom in the graveyard is actually beneficial because it allows him to use Hida on his own turn later on down the line.
Looks like we're grabbing Emergency.
Looks like it's going to be Emergency, Alert, Contain, or Rescue, Contain, and Extinguish.
Rescue, there I was. I was trying to figure out which of the two it was because Alert didn't seem like the right call, but definitely made the right one there. Turbulence and Defense Mode. It's a huge field. I mean, it sets up very fast. It's something that doesn't really need a lot of backup support here. And now we're going to go into... Might be that Hida you were channeling.
So the Promethean Princess can just bring back the Hydrant here, so that will amplify his trap card effects.
Again, Rescue Ace Hydrant really is what makes this deck so great. Each of those cards can be activated as long as you have that face-up Rescue Ace monster. But you get that extra special sauce if you have Rescue Ace Hydrant as well.
It looks like now he's special summoning Preventer from his hand by banishing a copy of Hydrant.
And just great resource management here because now that the Preventer is special summoning the Rescue Ace Hydrants that was sent to the graveyard, it's also going to let Preventer go back to the hand.
Yep.
Now he's link climbing through Link Karibo.
Getting the whole master class as if we were in the brains here, and there's Decode Talker Heat Soul, pay 1,000 life points.
Yeah.
Okay. Pay 1,000?
Resolves.
Gonna go and draw.
So we see here Chancellor is valuing putting Hydrant on the field, which is obviously one of the end goals for Rescue Ace, to amplify the effects of those trap cards. We commented on how
Draw face.
the ability to follow some of these Fire King monsters into the graveyard and negate their effects beyond just on the field is a huge advantage of playing the Rescue Ace strategy.
We've only really had 2 sets drop since Rescue Ace was in its all-time high in the Yu-Gi-Oh! Championship Series. I'd say Indianapolis was really where it showed out. But the deck's still good and really just takes advantage of all the great cards that the Fire strategy has been really employing lately.
Yeah, the limitation of Airlifter is obviously inconvenient. You'd certainly play more than one copy if you were allowed to do so. But the original Sinful Spoils package and now the new release of Snake Eyes Poplar has increased its viability and its consistency on those opening turns to a point where it probably mimics where it was at in Indianapolis.
Definitely feels like there's a Rescue Ace Hydrant on every block.
Certainly.
Contain, Extinguish. I think you do. Because he's 3 in hand, he just drew 2. Yeah, okay. Let's do it next game.
Scoops it up there, doesn't need to see anything else, isn't ready to fight.
Over to my right or left and notice a strategy that's quite unpopular and say, wow, that's really standing out to me. It's just a moment that you would acknowledge and remember. Whereas if you look over to your left and right in the middle of a round and notice, okay, a Fire King strategy, I don't really think much of it. So sometimes you can figure out what your opponent's playing just because you happen to have sit next to them earlier.
Well, speaking of not thinking much of it, little Poplar is going to take the field and try to activate his effect to add something to the hand. Chancellor thinking to himself if he wants to do anything about that, but lets it pass.
So he's choosing to hold back the Infinite Impermanence. This will be a valuable thing to watch. So ordering your hand interruptions is very important, obviously in a format where people are playing 12, 15, and yesterday Shuping had nearly 20 in his deck. Knowing when to sequence your hand interruptions is very vital to making it this far into the Swiss rounds and then eventually into the top cut.
No, you don't want to spend all your points of interaction in one place, and ordering them properly is how you dodge cards like Triple Tactic Talent, etc. But looks like we're going to use the Divine Temple of the Snake Eye, place something in the Spell and Trap zone from the deck here.
So Chancellor must be valuing cutting off an effect later on in the turn something like an Ash effect summoning from the deck, or searching, or potentially even summoning from the deck.
We have seen players do less immediate activations of those negating effects, right? They just save it for the one card that's actually going to do something against them. Now, waiting too long could backfire on you, but it seems like player philosophies are developing further and further as we go tournament by tournament.
Yeah, the more people have the opportunity to play against Snake Eye strategies, the more confident that you'll be with some of the interactions and points of contention. You'll understand, is it worth negating a popular effect if Infinite Impermanence is my only card in hand?
And that Divine Temple of the Snake Eye really has changed things up. I mean, the fact that the Fire King strategy is also including a copy of this card is really vital, because you do get that additional special summon whenever they kind of get into the game.
Yeah, it's a card that's, I wouldn't necessarily taken me by surprise, but it was a card that when you read it, it doesn't necessarily line up with the power of some of the modern day field spells that you see. You read a card like some of the Pressured Planets or Primeval Planet, clearly you're going to play the card because it instantly replaces itself. It's a little bit more convoluted. Typically cards that require your opponent to do something for you to get the value, which is the case with Divine Temple, usually get left off to the side, but this card's ability to just sort of fill out that spell and trap card zone, allowing you to build up resources for the following turns, and then also give you counterplay to Nibiru, has actually made it a viable, not only main deck option, side deck option. We've seen it all over the place this weekend.
Well, speaking of decks, we're going into the extra deck now, combining Snake Eye Oak and our Link Karibo to make an SP Little Knight.
No.
Not going to banish that impermanence.
So it looks like Chancellor valued negating the Oak as opposed to the Poplar, and it might actually be sufficient here because Matthew is going to set 3 cards of the spell and trap card zone, and he's going to end the turn with just SP Little Knight.
Attempt to leave main.
SP Little Knight's a powerful defensive card, but it may not be able to hold down on the onslaught of Rescue Ace cards, right? The Rescue Ace, they really just need to resolve that Turbulence once, and there's a lot of steps in between that SP Little Knight might get a little gun shy or trigger happy and decide to jump in. Ooh, but that's going to change things up. The anti-spell, oh, maybe not. Chain and Cosmic Cyclone to make sure that those spells are going to be activated freely.
So it looks like the anti-spell fragrance is in fact going to be banished.
Anything else in the standby, boss?
It's like a beautiful original copy from the very original PC game it came out in.
Yeah, those are beautiful, as well as the collector's rares. They both are quite beautiful.
Oh yeah, showing up in style. You got to when it's the Team YCS. You got to represent your team. We're going to go ahead and put that in the banishment over there. And Airlifter's going to see what it can do. Waiting to see if we have any response here from Matthew.
So it doesn't matter if it's limited to 1, if you naturally draw it.
Just
perfect.
get that good, right?
Chainlink 2. Target.
Pulling it off the field is definitely a good idea. Obviously, that would be 1 less Rescue Ace monster on the field, 1 less Rescue Ace monster hitting the graveyard. Oh, he's going to go and tribute it. Smart.
Summon 1 from his hand. The problem here is this is going to activate the Divine Temple, which is going to allow the Ash to hit the field, so that Matthew gets some follow-up.
Definitely allows him to replenish his resources quite quickly. Emergency's good, but this may be an emergency for Chancellor instead.
Yes.
So we see one of the valuable parts here is, sometimes you're not going for that full field. Sometimes through those hand interactions, the Divine Temple is that critical piece because you can set up the Ash for your opponent's turn because inevitably they're going to special summon. That's just the era that we live in. And as a result, the Ash now can search follow-up. It can actually search another copy of itself, which is an interesting component of Ash. Typically, cards that allow you to search your deck like this limit you to cards not named itself. That's not the case with Ash. So an Ash could search Ash, or here he's going to search Ponix, which now reveals that he is in fact playing the Fire Kings. And you actually saw Chancellor shuffle his or shake his head to acknowledge, okay, I am playing against not only Snake Eyes, but the Fire King strategy as well.
It is a little different to see the Divine Temple there, and that Divine Temple may pay dividends later if Lambert Dragon hits the field. That's what makes it so powerful, is that, yes, it has that initial activation effect, but later on in the duel, maybe you're going to see monsters jump out of the spell and trap zone again.
And we're able to search out a copy of Turbulence, and now he's going to be able to use his Hydrant effect as well.
Definitely feeling a little bit safer there. Obviously could use Link Karibo to put the Hydrant into the graveyard to go ahead and get Turbulence the old-fashioned way, just banishing those 2. Be nicer to use, the emergency to maybe get a Preventer here, so let's see what we got. He's considering it, but not sure of himself. Link Karibo is here after all. Yep. Now we're going to go ahead and just banish 2 and going straight into Turbulence, doing this the old-fashioned way. Now, Turbulence effect is going to activate. Matthew thinking about what he wants to do. Oh, and it resolves. We are going to go ahead and set 4, so let's see what we grab. Looks like Extinguish.
Contain is in there somewhere.
Yeah, there's Contain. I also see Rescue and Alert. Full complement there. Now, Reinforce is certainly a good card too, but just hasn't seen a lot of popularity in this format, so probably not going to be seeing it here.
No, occasionally you saw it pop up a little bit as a counterplay to Evenly Matched, but it's not a card that we're seeing a lot this weekend.
Evenly matched, certainly a good pick, but with every player ready for a follow-up, it just doesn't do the level of damage that it used to.
Go for it.
Yeah, Reinforce's graveyard effect was typically perceived as better than its actual on-field effect.
It's a shame, but hey, the card's still good. Now, speaking of good cards, looks like we're going to go ahead and send those two for Hita, the Fire Channeler, so let's grab a Snake Eye monster from the graveyard, perhaps.
And what we'll be able to see is Chancellor going to show off the fact that his deck actually has Snake Eyes in it. Or this is another option as well. Of course, he can just bring the Hydrant back that was banished.
Very convenient, right? Thanks for bringing me a Snake Eye Oak so I can get my Snake Eye Hydrant back.
Yeah, that's an important interaction because Chancellor's not actually playing Oak himself, but the wariness to know that Oak can use its effect to bring the Hydrant that's banished back onto the field or into your hand is a really valuable interaction point because, again, he's not playing the card himself, but he knows the card's full potential.
No, definitely if you've gotten this far in the tournament, you have been stealing some Snake Eye Oaks across the board, and Rescue Ace Hydrant is just such an incredible card. You want to be able to bring it, and Rescue Ace Turbulence just doing so much. We haven't seen a lot of Rescue Ace Turbulence's final effect come into play, right? It's little revenge where you can target a card on the field and destroy it if they do something to you. But that might come into play, but Turbulence is already off the field, and now we're just kind of cycling through the Link monsters.
Into Zelantis. Oh, so now we see a Zelantis not only in the Fire King Snake Eye strategy, but here in a Rescue Ace strategy.
Yeah.
Sure.
I guess the fire department does need a little bit of water on its side.
I'm curious what his end result here is going to be. Is it also going to be one with Raging Phoenix? Looking over his deck list, he does in fact play that.
So the Raging Phoenix did hit the graveyard as we were Link climbing.
Okay, perfect.
And those are some big numbers on the board.
And he gains 0, yeah. Okay.
And about it.
Yes.
Kind of a difficult situation for Matthew if those two cards are not what we need. Remember, those co-linked monsters are enabling the Zelantis to get some destruction effects off.
Double co-linked.
Thinking here.
It's pretty difficult. The pressure's definitely on, and if Chancellor locks this down, we'll be going to one of our other players.
Just trying these two, I assume?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, okay.
Cosmic Cyclone. I think that was a triple tactics talent, which obviously being set.
So it wasn't too
Perfectly
much.
valuable.
Certainly you could think about activating the Cosmic Cyclone, but with so much attack points on the board, you may not want to reduce your life points by 1,000.
So I think Chancellor's just checking the math to see if he does in fact have enough.
Sure, I'm at 19.
So looking at our records here,
Yeah, because
looks like it's not over till it's over.
He would be at 71.
This would be our first victory of Chancellor 1. Obviously, Jared took one for the blue team, and Cole down at the bottom in the C spot took one for the red team. But they haven't finished their duels.
A couple things to note here. One, the life points unlikely to be reduced to 0 there because the Divine Temple was increasing the Ash's attack. And then we actually knew that he had Ponix in hand, which can be special summoned because the fire monster was destroyed. So now we have sort of a second layer of barrier here for our life points. So although this particular play was great because it cleared 2 spell or trap cards, which is definitely valuable for Chancellor, it doesn't necessarily reduce Matthew's life points down fully to 0.
So it's not over till the last card is played. Chancellor just cutting the deck. Obviously, we have the Sanctuary off the Ponix effect there. Maybe exactly what we need because the Divine Temple not doing a whole lot here without anything in the spell and trap zone that's a monster card.
Emergency from him.
So now we're going to activate Emergency from hand. The fact that these are quick plays allow you to use them in the battle phase.
Yeah, resolves.
I was game 2 going in, so.
I think I got it.
Yeah.
So let's see who we grab here. It's going to be in defense mode, Hydrant. But with Hydrant here now, we can activate some of those other cards.
Yeah, he's going to send the Preventer from his hand. That's now going to allow him to summon the Airlifter from his banished pile.
Yeah.
And now this is going to also
how much?
allow him to attack for more damage.
Very heads-up play, using those quick play spells during the battle phase to just make sure you can get it. And a little bit of a long way around. Obviously, Emergency is only putting the monsters in defense mode, but getting rid of the Preventer from the hand, let it use its effect to go ahead and get Airlifter back out. So just resource management at its all-time high.
Yeah, that was a perfect discard off of the Emergency because now he has Hydrant on the field, so all of his trap cards have been amplified in their effectiveness. Plus, he was able to recur that monster from the banished pile through the effective Preventer, so it's really great sequencing.
And speaking of recurring and sequencing, looks like we're going to go and use Link Karibo. Go ahead and put that the zone that Salaman Great Sunlight Wolf is pointed to, so now we can go ahead and access the graveyard and grab another fire card. Just great resource management here across the board.
I'll add the lifter.
Sure.
So he adds Airlifter back, which technically would mean he has the opportunity to summon it for a 3rd time next turn. So even though it is limited to 1, this deck's ability to recur it and also search it whenever it is necessary kind of circumvents the fact that it's been limited to 1 on the Forbidden Limited list.
Okay.
Decode Talker Heat Soul just doing a great job of continuing that resource management. It seems like the only damage that's been done to Chancellor is what he's done himself by paying 1,000 life points.
I think that's the case in the last game as well.
Winnable.
Just undefeated in terms of, well, keeping his team's life points healthy.
And you hear Matthew saying, oh, this is winnable. I think he has just the Sanctuary in his hand, so
Sure.
He's going to need quite the top deck to circumvent the field the Chancellor's about to finish making here.
Yeah.
Well, it's getting more and more difficult as we see SP Little Knight rifling through the graveyard here. It did include that. Oh, and the Link Karibo going is going to be so difficult. Now, when there's an effect negation, that's just going to be it. Looks like we have some updates on our table scores. Now, Minsu's taking a game, so they're 1-1 each on table A. Of course, you're watching us here on Chancellor and table B with the first game. And then, of course, on C, Cole is still holding it down with that 1-0 score against Tyler.
Resolves.
So what we're going to see here is an alert to put the Hydrant back on the field, and this is critical that he got rid of the Link Karibo on the past turn, because now cards like Contain and Extinguish that have targeting effects can target freely and not have to worry about Link Karibo coming out of the graveyard to kind of circumvent that effect. And with Hydrant on the field, all of those trap cards have amplified effects.
And Hydrant, a little vulnerable here. Obviously, there's no other rescue aces there, but they're not particularly hard to get on the field, so if it needs to be protected, it can. SP Little Knight's got his back too as well. Looks like the Sanctuary is going to be activated. Is that a Nibiru, I see?
And a Ghost Spell.
Oh, no. This is going to be a very uphill battle for Matthew then.
He just set 2 past?
Yeah.
Your game 3 or game 2?
2.
You won game 1? Okay.
Okay.
What about you, Minsu?
We're going to game.
Matthew giving us the updates from the
Might be
table.
on you guys. We'll see.
Matthew definitely taking in note of how his fellow teammates are doing, because the situation that he's in here is not the greatest.
Yeah, you think you're burning up your opponent's deck unless they're willing to just borrow your fire monsters and keep burning with you.
So he there destroyed the Ponix, which he added back to his hand from the standby phase, and now he's able to special summon Garunix from his hand. Now this is probably going to get met with
Contain targets in the game.
Contain.
Sure.
And it can't be used as material since Hydrant's on the board.
And it cannot
can attack.
Yeah, it can?
Cannot.
It cannot. Yes, okay.
Yeah, so it cannot attack, and it cannot be used to go back into the extra deck in any way.
It is practically a blank card at this point.
Ooh, that's a card he drew.
Oh, that's it. Okay, the one was stopped by the Ghost Bell and Haunted Mansion, and that's all Matthew needed to see to go ahead and extend the fist bump.
I think this really